To Anam Shafton Kenny, 30 seconds to put your question.
Very good here. Minister, the one issue that we do know there is certainty around is there is going to be a common agricultural policy. That's going to happen. So we need to be getting details of that, and farmers need surety around that as to where it's going to be and what new schemes or what schemes are being developed that's going to look after farmers into the future, particularly in Pillar 1, because we know there's going to be changes there in regard to having a new, what was green, and a new environmental section in that, and as to how that's going to work, particularly in the context of the GLOS schemes that we have there at present. So I'd like to get some details on this, Minister, because all this talk is fine, but we need to be getting down to the nuts and bolts of it at this stage.
Thank you. Under the draft CAP 2021 to 2027 proposals, each member state is required to submit a CAP strategic plan by the 1st of January 2020. The new delivery model proposed by the Commission is performance-based, and now all schemes under Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 are to be delivered under one single plan. In recognition of the climate change challenges facing the European Union and the European Union's international commitments in relation to climate action, the new CAP proposals also outline a greater environmental ambition post-2020. The development of the draft CAP strategic plan will be a complex process involving a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis, a needs assessment, scheme design, an ex-ante evaluation including a strategic environmental assessment and an appropriate assessment. My department is currently tendering for the ex-ante evaluation of the draft plan, which is an integral part of the process. Another key element is stakeholder and public consultation. My department has already concluded a series of external stakeholder events and sought public submissions on the draft CAP regulations in January of 2018. I also hosted a series of public meetings in February 2018 and the National Consultative Conference that was held on the 4th of July, with all key stakeholders following the publications of the Commission's legislative proposals. The Department has also held a series of meetings with key stakeholders. The next stage of formal consultation is under consideration, and its timing will be related to the progress of the discussions on the proposals. This consultation may involve requests for written submissions, stakeholder forums, as well as meetings with individual stakeholders. We expect to have formal public consultation at a number of stages in the process. In the meantime, the Department will continue to engage with relevant stakeholders and interest groups through existing forums and structures to update them on the progress of discussions and to hear their views. Most recently, on the 22nd of January, my officials have updated the Oireachtas colleagues at a meeting of the Oireachtas Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee. My department will continue to work towards meeting the 1st of January 2020 deadline, while of course in tandem discussions in relation to the funding of the next CAP, as well as on the detail of what are currently draft CAP regulations, including in relation to CAP strategic plans, will continue to take place among Member States and European
institutions. Very much, Minister. Deputy Kenny, 1 minute.
Thank you, Minister. So basically you're telling us that there is a tendering process in place to put some consultancy firm into the job of actually developing the plan, and that it's a matter of consultation between now and then. And I think with really less than a year to get this contingency plan in place and have it ready and actually move things forward, we'd need to be moving pretty quickly to get something in place. And I would like to get detail, as I say, in regard to what is envisaged, particularly around Pillar 1, because a lot of farmers are still talking about this situation where you're looking at going back 20 years to reference years. Is that still going to be the case? Is that still envisaged as where we're going to be at? Are we going to find ourselves in a case that when the end of this comes, that it'll be almost a quarter of a century that you'll be based on what payments were based on the activity that happened before that? So, there needs to be a greater element of certainty around this. I'd also be interested in regard to the convergence and where that's going to move and how quickly that's seen to move forward, because a lot of farmers out there, as you know, because of what they were doing in the year 2000, have a very low basic payment at the moment, and they need to get that raised in order to protect the family farm. And there's other issues around there, around biodiversity, and you mentioned the issue. You mentioned the issue of greening and of the environmental element of it. I just wonder, for instance, it's one of the things that I know some of the farm organisations are talking about, is the keeping of bees as a livestock unit. Is that considered? Is there things like that needs to be brought in there? I know you may smile and laugh, but we do need to be thinking as to how we're going to move things forward, because a lot of farmers out there are concerned.
Thank you.
Well, I haven't heard of bees as a livestock unit, but biodiversity will be and environmental sustainability will be much more a central element of the next common agricultural policy. Just the regulations published in terms of getting to a strategic plan require us to do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the opportunities, what are the threats for Irish agriculture? And in terms of that analysis, they also oblige us in terms of a needs assessment for what agriculture here needs into the future, to have an external evaluation of that process, of those two steps. So that's why we're going to a consultant who will look at what we've done, and what we will have done will be as a consequence of engagement as well with stakeholders. So it is a complex process. It does involve external oversight in a way, insofar as an external consultant will look at what we're doing, but ultimately it's an issue that will be signed off by the department in consultation with stakeholders. On the reference years, I mean, I've heard that criticism, but if you look at where agriculture and entitlements are today relative to 20 years ago, they bear little or no resemblance. In fact, bear in mind, under the current cap, over €100 million will have moved from farmers with high per hectare entitlements to farmers below the average level of entitlements. And it is my view, and contained within the documents as published, that that journey of convergence will continue. Now, the convergence will be both external in terms of other member states are looking for a greater share of the cake, but internally, in terms of whatever size of cake we get, there will be greater convergence. Now, I've heard some people talk about upward-only convergence, which baffles me to an extent, sounds something of an oxymoron, but there will be a continuation of the journey of convergence, which is a greater equalisation and share out of the spoils of the common agricultural policy between all farmers.
Thank you very much. Now, final comment.
Final comment.
Very quick comment.
The issue in regard to Pillar 2 as well, Minister, in regard to what plans are there, because GLOS has been a successful scheme to some extent, but a lot of farmers, want certainty into the future, because they're concerned that in Pillar 1 you're going to have an element of some environmental measures put into it. There's going to be actions in regard to that. So what actions are going to be left when you come into GLOS? And we do need to be at this stage, getting some sense of certainty around that and the levels of payment that's going to be available, because one of the big criticisms of GLOS is that the levels of payments, compared to the REP schemes and other schemes in the past, actually went way down for the actions that they had to take.
I accept a continuation of that environmental ambition that GLOS has will be part of the next cap, whether it's a GLOS 2 or a different structure, because the new cap, the Commission says, will be performance-based, and it will be on, payments approved on the basis of quantifiable outcomes. So in terms of our, the journey of continuing greater sustainability, climate-friendly policies in agriculture, it appears that what the Commission is looking for here now is quantifiable outcomes upon which payments will be based. And, I mean, you would equally be critical of me if I was being overly prescriptive now, at a time when we're doing a SWOT analysis and a needs assessment, if I was saying, well, this is how it's going to be. So we will do the SWOT analysis, we will do the needs assessment, we will have that oversight by the external consultant, and we will engage with stakeholders. But I do think we do need successors to, in my view, GLOS-type schemes, BDGP-type schemes, so that we can continue the journey. But I think it will be an accelerated journey in the new cap.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary.